What's up, fellas? In the second of today's videos, we're going to be taking a look at the surprise rookie, the breakout rookie from the 2020 rookie class in the NBA, and it's Tyrese Haliburton. We're going to talk about why people missed on him, what they should have seen when they were evaluating the prospect, and kind of what his future is in Sacramento and what his career is potentially going to look like, as he has been an incredibly promising rookie, especially considering where he was drafted in the late lottery. But really quickly before we get started, if you enjoy content like this, then consider subscribing. I upload twice a day, every single day on this channel, so it's the most consistent NBA content on YouTube. I'm Tucker, by the way, if you guys are new here. You can also leave a like rating on the video as well, and check me out at various socials in a link tree down in the description below. With those things said, let's take a look at, kind of the season of Tyrese Haliburton so far and why so many people incorrectly evaluated him. I mean, he got to the late lottery, and I think he's shown pretty early on that not only is he one of the best rookies in this class, but he's a guy that is incredibly versatile and is really just already knows how to make winning plays at the NBA level. And I think is certainly going to be someone that's going to be in contention for the Rookie of the Year the rest of the way, amongst actually a surprisingly strong group of candidates for that award throughout the rest of the season. So let's take a look at some of the negatives. What did people not like about Tyrese Haliburton? What caused him to slip all the way down to the late lottery behind a handful of other guards that simply are not having as good of a season as he is to this point? Well, the first thing that I think really stood out to people from a visual perspective, with the eye test, is his shooting form is not the prettiest thing in the world. It's a little bit awkward, and I think people see that and they think, well, how is this going to translate? And ultimately, at the NBA level, if you're not going to be able to shoot, it's going to be a really difficult transition for you. With the way the NBA is played now, if you're a backcourt player and you can't shoot, you basically can't play. Despite all the other things that you can do well as a player, you need to be able to space the floor, and ultimately people thought that not necessarily that Haliburton would struggle as a shooter, but just that there were some red flags and some bad signs, especially considering some of the weird shooting forms and shot changes that we've seen in the past, guys like Markelle Fultz. We've seen some weird things happen there, and I think people really got scared off by the shot release. And I don't necessarily blame people for that. A couple other things that were mentioned as weaknesses prior to the draft, those were the fact that he was a bit skinny, definitely on the skinnier side, even as a longer guard. People worried about the physicality of the NBA and how that would affect him going against bigger and stronger players. They also kind of felt like he wasn't truly a natural scorer. And again, as it relates to the shooting stuff as well, like if you're going to be a backcourt player in the league, you need to either be a really good shooter or someone that can do a little bit of shooting and a little bit of creating, or a really good creator. Those are kind of the only archetypes for you offensively as a backcourt player. And people didn't think that the shooting stuff was going to translate super well considering the shot form, and they didn't really see him as a truly natural scorer either, as another weakness. Another one was the fact that he took a huge statistical jump from his freshman season to his sophomore season, and people thought that that might possibly be a bit of a fluke. Now, that's kind of an odd, a bit of analysis there, considering the fact that, that jump and that development should be seen as a positive thing. And we see guys show up, in college and dominate as freshmen and then go right to the NBA. So why is that any different than someone showing up as a freshman, having a great year as a sophomore, taking a significant leap? It's all college production. Yes, it comes a year later for him, but it still shouldn't have really been that much of a red flag. And then the last point, from a physical standpoint, we talked about the fact that, people thought that he was relatively skinny. There also wasn't a ton of explosiveness at the rim. Like, he's quick and he's got some acceleration to him, but at the rim, he wasn't going to blow you out of the water with athleticism. People thought that might affect his ability to finish. Now, here's what people missed. So that's why people got it wrong. Those are the things that people paid too much attention to, and they missed the obvious stuff here. The first is the fact that he's 6'5" and he's got great length, which speaks to versatility, which speaks to an ability to play multiple positions, which is such a critical component at the NBA level, especially in the situation he finds himself in Sacramento, which I'll talk about a little bit later in the video. The other was the fact that he was a good passer. Wasn't, groundbreaking, but he was a guy that can facilitate, and again, speaks to that both on and off ball role, that versatility that provides, which continues to come up throughout his draft profile, is the fact that you feel like he can play multiple positions. You feel like he can play either position in the backcourt. And that goes along with his passing and not just seeing him as a guy that can only shoot or can only score or can only pass, but can do a little bit of everything. And that jack of all trades ability, I think at times gets people more negative reviews than it should. And I think that was certainly the case here for Haliburton. And again, speaking again to the versatility is another, obvious thing they missed here. And in contrast to the shooting stuff, right? Like, people were worried about the form, but he had really good shooting percentages in college, and one that ends up being, more critical than anything else when, get in terms of evaluating a draft prospect, is his free throw percentage. He shot 82% from the line in college in his last year, right before he came to the NBA. That's about as good of an indicator as you can possibly get of a guy that is either going to be a good shooter immediately or is going to develop into one. He has the fundamentals. He's knocking down 82% of his free throws. That typically is a better indicator of three-point shooting and overall shooting success in the NBA than any other shooting statistic. And that should have been something that would have, curbed some of the weird shooting form issues that people had with his game. And then I think kind of the biggest thing, and this is such a, it's not as tangible of a thing. It's definitely an intangible, and it's just the fact that he makes winning plays. He gets in the passing lanes. He makes the right play. He shoots at the right time. He tacks closeouts at the right time. Is a really good decision maker in every aspect of the game and just makes winning plays and is not going to put you in a position where you feel like you have to bench other guys to play him. He can fit into multiple different roles. And all of those things are what made him such an intriguing prospect, but ultimately people got hung up on a little bit of lack of explosiveness and a weird shooting form, and that's why they missed on him. And basketball-wise, he actually ended up in a really good spot in Sacramento in terms of the roster, because him being able to play either guard position means he can play with Fox or he can play with Hield, and ultimately his natural fit is probably alongside De'Aaron Fox long-term, as they will probably move on from Buddy Hield, and they just gave De'Aaron Fox a max, so they're not going to move on from him. And that's a really, really good fit for him. And they have enough offense in pretty much any group, whether it's with Hield or with Fox, to where he doesn't have to do too much. He's not asked to be a 20-point per game scorer. He can go out there and be the jack of all trades guy and continue to develop into, a potential 20-point per game scorer down the road and not asked to be too much, which is a really good fit for him. And his future role is at least relatively clear, as I said, is eventually they'll probably move on from Hield. And it's odd to think of a rookie being in a really good spot in Sacramento, because I think they have a reputation of either picking the wrong guys or not developing players correctly. And it doesn't seem to be the case for Haliburton right now. It looks like Sacramento is doing the correct things with him, putting him in multiple different positions, allowing him to do a lot of different things, which speaks again to his versatility. And I think ultimately they've got a really, really good player here, and it doesn't seem like they're all that inclined to screw it up. Maybe they will ultimately. Maybe they'll make the wrong moves. Maybe they'll hold on to Hield for too long and stunt his development. I don't know. But what I do know is Tyrese Haliburton is a really, really good player for the Sacramento Kings. Pretty much everybody agrees on that point. So bottom line is, what happened? Why did people miss this? Well, we talked about this multiple times earlier. The awkward jumper stuff, they paid way too much attention to the weaknesses. And again, I think it's just the intangible stuff. Like, people weren't paying as much attention to, all the winning plays that this guy made. And ultimately, that's what got them in trouble. And it's kind of crazy to watch him now in the NBA and see him be such a natural fit from a versatility standpoint, all these different things. And I think, ultimately, it's like what I said earlier. I think people saw the versatility. I think they saw the size. I think they saw the length. I think a lot of people saw the winning plays, and what they thought was going to hold him back was the jump shot. And they thought that if he couldn't shoot, then none of the other stuff matters. And they thought that it's impossible to play a guy in the NBA, despite how many winning plays you make, if you can't make jump shots. And ultimately, he's proven them wrong. And he's really worked on his shot. And yeah, it looks awkward. I think anybody that, turns on a Kings game and watches Tyrese Haliburton for the first time is probably surprised anytime his jump shot goes in. But ultimately, there have been some really ugly releases in the NBA in the past. And, some of those guys have been good shooters. I think Haliburton is on pace to be one of those guys. So we'll see how the future goes for him in Sacramento. I think ultimately, this is a guy that can be like a borderline all-star caliber player down the road. It's kind of difficult to evaluate his ceiling. Is a guy that is making such a strong immediate impact. I think immediately that makes people question his ceiling. It makes people wonder, is he coming in with such a high floor that there isn't much higher to go from here? I think that's a fair question, but right now, I don't think that this is the time to be putting, a cap on what Tyrese Haliburton could be. I think that he probably is a bit more situational than, someone like LaMelo Ball or some of the more, just more raw, talented players in this class. But I also think that it's pretty easy to put a good situation around Tyrese Haliburton. And as long as he's with a competent organization, which fingers crossed that team is Sacramento, or he gets moved to a different team, he should be a really, really good NBA player for a long, long time. And I think it shows that, that spot, that weird 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 spot in the late lottery is just such a weird place to be drafting. You're thinking about Donovan Mitchell, you're thinking about Bam Adebayo, talking about Tyrese Haliburton this year. There's a lot of guys that get picked in those spots that end up becoming really good players, and then there are players scattered all around them that end up becoming nothing. Think about the guys, think about the teams in front of Sacramento. He would have been awesome on the Hawks. He would have been awesome in Phoenix. San Antonio was the pick right before Sacramento and decided to pass on him as well. So you know, there's a lot of smart teams that decided that, you know, Tyrese Haliburton wasn't their guy, and I think Sacramento fans are excited and happy that they did. But that is going to be the end of the second of today's videos, and I thank you very much for watching. Once again, my name is Tucker. If you missed any of my previous videos, then be sure to check out the boxes on screen. As I said, I upload twice a day, every single day. Hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.